think now it's okay. Okay. Thanks for participating. I'm glad that you're all here. Hi, my name is Anna, and I'm an Her Time Romania ambassador on social media and content side. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, join the Facebook group if you haven't done yet. Shortly, Her Time is a safe community for young people to support each other, share resources and opportunities in different fields, and form valuable long-term connection duration. So if it sounds good, we invite you to join the community of over 10,000 members. You can support us through a monthly donation on Patreon. And today we will talk about how to use media to help your community. With our special guest, Ivana Jiménez Barrios and Daniella Arrieta. Can you describe yourself in a few words?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity, for letting us being here today. So I think Dani had a bit of a connection issues, but she'll be right back. Maybe she's in the waiting room.
I'm here.
Okay, there she is. So just to start. I'm just letting her know that we see her. So just to present you very briefly what we have on the agenda today. So we're gonna first introduce ourselves. So my name is Ivana. I'm originally from Venezuela, but I'm currently living in Paris. And actually in 3 days, I'm gonna be finishing my master's degree in human rights and humanitarian actions. I'm very excited. In the past, I did a bit of multimedia journalism, communications, and well, I studied political sciences and human rights. So that's sort of my background. And now I'll let the floor to Dani to introduce herself as well.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Daniella. I'm from El Salvador, so Central America, very far away. And I did political science bachelor, and right now I'm doing my master's at school, just like Ivana, but I'm doing an internship tech called make.org here with you.
Okay, so we hope it will be a pleasant, comfortable, productive, and valuable discussion for you. This session will be recorded and lasted posted on our YouTube channel. And if you have questions, leave them in the chat, or you can keep them for last. We will have special time reserved for questions. And now I give you the word to present.
Perfect. So we're gonna start on how you create really daunting and scary when you're creating a communication strategy or just simply like wondering how to post on social media. So the first step we wanted to give you was to create a communication strategy. What is it? A communication strategy is a simple plan, a document you can create that's going to express your goals and methods, including what you, and if you're working with other people, wish to share with the public and whom you're trying to reach. That's really important because it's going to allow you to consider the long and short-term goals. So it's going to help you set your objectives. It's going to help you identify the audience of your communications, and it's going to help you translate your objectives into actions, because it's not helpful to just have goals. It's really useful. So you have to we recommend you to describe the forms that your message will take, and including the social media platforms you will use, because I'm pretty sure you know that the content can change from one platform to the other. So it's really important to provide some context to what you're doing and provide a timeline. For example, at HDRI, That's the thing last year at Sciences Po University, and was to have a timeline. So we had a calendar detailing the proposed implementation of this communication strategy and detailing to you. So that way you have you can make sure that the creative process and the creation process of your content. So for us, it was really, really useful to have this. As for your the form that your communication strategy can take, it can be a single document. Like we had a Google Drive because that worked for everyone in the team. But for example, like I know there are other tools you can use like Notion, Trello, Google Drive, which is really user friendly. I think everyone these days uses Google Drive, so it's really easy to use it. And we had like a Word document where we had a calendar, and everyone would like write down their name to the project they wanted to do. What day, that way, like everyone knew when they were gonna post that specific content. What it's gonna allow you is to list your resources. So of course, when you're just starting, like there are a lot of free resources you can use online on how to get started, but it's also really important if you want to like go professional or try and just reach more people. You could also consider the budget you need if you're gonna pay, like for example, some graphic design tools or like why you're gonna be needing to pay. But of course, paying a lot of free resources on the internet. So we'll talk more about that, but just to give you an idea of how we did this, it's gonna allow you to ensure that your posts are reflecting your core values and your mission. So what do you want to achieve? That's why it's really important before like starting anything else. Don't critically and try to step and try to envision where do you want to go. So that's like the.
Sorry, Daniela, is there a way that you could reconnect maybe from another device, or if you could switch off the Wi-Fi or something, because we cannot hear you very clearly?
Oh, you didn't hear anything else?
No, we did hear you, but it was cutting off from time to time.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I have really bad connection.
No worries. We're here.
I finished my part, so Ivana, if you wanna go next. Or if there's something that you didn't really hear clearly, I can repeat it. So
if any of the participants have a question about what was just explained now, you can leave it in the chat or just ask so that they can re-explain.
Okay, thank you. So let us know if we need to repeat anything that we just did. And now that we have an overview on how to get started and how to get organized, because believe it or not, it's great to be creative and we need to have all our ducks in the same row. So we're gonna talk about finding the message. So as Dani explained, when you have a communication strategy in mind, you can have like big ideas, like topics that can be like environment, human rights, gender, and so on. But what is key is like, what is the message you personally want to convey in regards to that topic? So let's say that we have like two different types of content that you can create. The first one would be like an awareness campaign or like advocacy, meaning that this is a subject that is very meaningful to you and you would like to let other people know why is also that topic important for them. So you can either choose to explore what's out there, meaning that, okay, so perhaps you're going to talk about climate change, which is a topic that is very well known. And I mean, a lot of people know about it. So you need to try to find what the angle you want to tackle and how is that contributing to a bigger discussion. Because as I mentioned, it's a topic that, well, it's on the news, on the papers, and so on. So you need to try to find like that specific angle that really speaks to you. And a lot of people use big words to describe this process, A lot of people use intersectionality, which basically means that you get to explore different layers. So instead of just speaking about climate change, you can see how climate change intersects with other topics. For instance, climate change and gender equality, to see how it affects women, or climate change and indigenous peoples, and so on. So as you get to mix all these different topics, the more precise your angle is going to be, and the more interesting and compelling it's going to go as well, because it's going to be so unique that people are going to see like an added value in it. And that's why I put the question of, has it already been done? Of course, it's super hard to find like a new angle. And as someone that tried to be a journalist, I can tell you it can be very stressful. So it's okay if other people are also speaking about that subject. That's great, because it means that there are other people that, just like you, are also passionate about that topic. And I put another option, which is not awareness and advocacy campaign, which is an opinion piece, which is basically not as fact-based as an awareness campaign. So it's more like you speaking from your perspective. That one is a bit more flexible, because you don't need to worry about the second part of the slide, which is pretty much getting your facts together. Because when you're trying to share a message, the most important thing is for it to be backed up. You see today a lot of big words like fake news and fact checking. So all of that fits into this part, because you want it to also not only to be compelling and pretty, but you also want it to be convincing. And as you might have known, when you share stuff on social media, of course you can erase it, but the internet is eternal and it's forever. So that can be a bit scary to see that, well, a lot of information is out there. So when you're trying to build your content, there are two big categories on information you can share. One is what we can call hard data, which is numbers, statistics, dates. So if you're speaking, for instance, about climate change, you can speak about the amount of CO2, the amount of species that are in danger, evolutions, key dates, and things like that. So all of that fits into hard data. And when you're trying to gather all this information, it's super important for you to cross-reference. Meaning that if you stumble across one type of information, you're not just gonna take that as a given. It's super important that you see how other journals or other sources are speaking about it, for you to see what's the big framework and what's the actual reality. So that's super important, especially in a context where we have a flood of fake news everywhere. You actually have specialized news journals that specify in sort of decrypting fake news. That's a bit more technical, but if you read one or two, or if you can three different types of sources, that's already great, because you're making sure that what you're sharing with others is true. And that's super important. And also that comes to the second part, which is basically being transparent and sharing your sources. When you create content, you can either put together, compile a lot of information. So if you're sharing, for instance, a post on Instagram, it's as simple as putting the source in the description. You don't need to extend and say the date, the website. You just say, for instance, The Guardian or the New York Times, for people to know when you got that information. And not only is that a tool for you to build a sense of trust, but it's also for people to know, like, if they really got interested in the subject, for them to keep going and keep learning about it. And then on the second category, we have people's stories. For me, this is my personal favorite, which is not just reading what's already on the news, it's actually you going after those news. So you can do interviews, and this is super interesting with different formats. So you have visuals and quotes, but you can also do podcasts, YouTube videos, and the list goes on and on and on. But what I really like about people's stories is that you get to quote them. And you can think of quotes as a tweet. It's short, it's compelling, and it has a lot of soul behind it, because today people don't like to read. So when they read a tweet that's super short and actually resumes very well an idea, that's really, really great. And when you quote someone, it's super important, and we're gonna mention it throughout this presentation. It's really important that you get their consent to share them. because it's not like as an open source or a journal where you can just re-quote them for copyright sakes, meaning that you don't get sued for sharing other people's content. But if you're engaging the responsibility of someone and based on the topics, perhaps what they're saying can be a bit more sensitive or a bit more political. So it's always important for you to get consent from that person. And I think this is pretty much a big overview of how you can find a message for you to share. And of course, we put these different steps, but there's no exact recipe. You can start here and then come back and move on and so on. The important thing is for you to know that if you tick all these boxes, your content is going to be really, really good. Then for this second part, it's really like a wrap up of both what Dani and I said. So these are basically the 5 W's, which are key questions for you to have in mind. And it applies both for the content as for the form. Because as Dani mentioned, organization is key. So not only are you gonna think about who does what, but also when, and the most important part is the why. What is it that you want to achieve with all of this that you're producing? In terms of content, that helps you to build up your story. You know, like when you came back from school and your parents told you, what did you do during your day? So you would tell them, oh, I spoke to this person, let's say in the school kitchen, and we talk about this and that. So these are just like key questions that if you manage to incorporate them in your message, you're gonna make sure that it's really complete because it answers all these questions. And what's really great is that if you put all of this, people don't have to go elsewhere to complete the information you just shared. So perhaps if someone is, let's say, watching or scrolling stories on Instagram and they stumble across one of your posts and your post has all of this information, that's already super useful and more than enough because people already have that information in one same place. So now that we have this big overview of, let's say, the prior steps, we're gonna go to a part that's a bit more fun, which is the part that we call make the magic happen. So the first part is pretty much getting inspiration. So we chose Pinterest. We were saying that a lot of people think it's a mom thing for you to get like wedding ideas or party ideas and so on. Here we put 3 different mood boards that we personally have used. So the first one is about colors. So this is pretty much just trying to see which colors match with each other. The second one is for logo inspiration. So the idea is to see what's out there, what do you like, and what does work with you. And then the third one, this one was, let's say, just for fun, because it was pretty nice and it was to make posters. So it's just for you to know that technology today works really, really well. And online platforms have really strong algorithms. So if you put just one simple keyword, the thing will do whatever you want and will put a lot of information together. And it's really great because you can see all this inspiration in one same place. So this is for the pretty part, for you to start gathering ideas. And of course, this works with any other social media platform. You can always save and like things and then come back and see what works for you. And this takes us to this second one, which is basically social media accounts. So you can see how people also share different types of messages. So of course, when it's news and journals, you can see that it's a bit more serious, for instance, with The Guardian. But then you can also have memes and funny pictures as well, because you have to admit that when you laugh, you also remember stuff. That's why a lot of people prefer to watch the movies instead of reading the books. But that works for everything else. So that's for you to get inspiration as well. And of course, you can save things and see how other people are sharing their stories too. And now for the third part, like the third big way for you to get inspiration, it would be thematic campaigns. This is a great, great way when you're getting started because you don't have to come up with a bunch of ideas. These are things that happen every year. This one, for instance, if I'm not mistaken, it happened in October or September of last year. And it was just a whole week and they pretty much give you everything. They give you the templates, they give you the logos, the color palettes. So whatever you have to do afterwards, it would be pretty much like the middle one, which is just trying to share information that you like for yourself based on the topic they already gave. So this is super interesting. And as Dani mentioned, when you're designing your strategy, you could also take into account these campaigns. Normally they happen in international days, like Women's Day in March, or the World Water Day in July, and so on. So it's a great exercise also for you to sort of map which are the big days, because they can be what we call windows of opportunity for you to share that content, because you know that in that given day, a lot of people is gonna be interested in that topic. So that's really great for you, especially when you're getting started.
Okay, and so another really important part is to personalize your content, because as Ivana said, like a lot of people may be talking about the same topics you are, and there's nothing bad with it, but you want to shine. So for example, the first thing you gotta do is define your values. So what do you stand for? This is a really key question to have in mind. So just try not to get on a topic because it's trendy or because everyone else is talking about it. Really advocate for a cause you really care for and stay true to yourself. And this is going to allow you to define how you're going to carry all the activities you have to do to achieve your mission and your vision. So your vision, what's that? That's your goal. What do you want to achieve in the long term? So right now I'm just having fun. I'm just creating content, but maybe I want to pursue these in the long term. Where do I want to take my account? You have to try and ask yourself these questions, because it's gonna give coherence a little bit to what you're making, and it's gonna allow you to renew your ideas and also simply evolve through time. So it's okay if your ideas change, as Ivana said, like you can start somewhere and then you're like, oh, I want to change the angle of this. I want to focus more on another type of topics, but that's fine. But the idea is to know where you're going when you start a little bit, try and be creative and imagine where you want to take this account you have just started, or sharing your posts. You can be as creative as you want with that. And your mission, so a lot of people mix up vision and mission, but the mission is going to describe what you need to do to achieve that mission. So it's going to define your value proposition, and the value proposition, it's just a fancy term to say what's going to differentiate you from the others. So what's going to make you stand out from the others that are creating content on the same topic. And as well, the mission and the vision have to support each other, so they're more complementary. So you have to not be careful, but like make sure that they match. And that's one way to personalize your content and simply make people say like, hey, this is that person that already started creating this type of content, so people are going to start recognizing your work, and that's a good way to gain more followers and have more reach. And then this is another really important part when you're personalizing your content, is to have an identity, which is a little bit tricky, especially when you're starting, because as Ivana said, like you can start with mood boards and you're going to try and mix and match colors and see which colors go better with others. For example, for HDRI, we have white and blue and a little bit of yellow. So you see that there are really simple colors. And the logo is really, really simple. Really, it's just HDRI, which means Human Development Research Initiative. So we didn't really complicate ourselves. I would say the simplest you make it, it's the better. So don't really think you have to be a graphic designer or a professional to come up with a logo. In Canva, there are a lot of already existing templates to create logos. So that's really great, because you're gonna learn as you go. And you'll see, when I first started, I had no idea on how to create a logo. And right now, for example, in the internship I'm working as well, like we're creating logos for a collective of associations and friends. And it's really interesting to see that all that part of the values in your mission and your vision are really important to create your logo, because your logo is gonna be the first thing people see. They're gonna associate it with you. So that's really key, because it's like when you first see someone, is the first impression you get of your page or or of well, when you meet a person, that's what happens. Then you have to have a graphic universe. So that's the colors. You have to try and have a coherence. For example, we try and keep with, I would say, more cold colors, and then just some yellow because it's a trendy color. So what I did, for example, is like try and read that. There are a lot of articles on the internet on how to know what colors go best with which topic. So there are a lot. We can send you after the conference's content, but there are a ton of papers and articles on this and courses. So really feel free just to search, and you'll learn as you go, and then you'll have a personalized content. And the last part, it's really important, as Ivana said, to make it short, because we're really lazy sometimes, and especially when you don't have time, you're tired, you just scroll on your Instagram, your Facebook, your Twitter, and when you see a wall of text, you're like, oh no, I'm gonna just scroll and I'm not gonna read it. So you have to be really precise and try and make it as compelling as you can. So for example, one thing we really recommend you are infographics, because it's something that has really worked for us, because it includes a lot of pictures and just like essential highlights and numbers that people have to retain after seeing the posts. So even though they didn't read the whole caption, if they saw the visual and the visual had like important percentages and numbers, that's what's going to help them. So here we're going to show you some of the examples of what we have done. For example, here we were introducing our team of researchers on social, economic, and cultural rights. And as you can see, we gave like a short definition of what that is. So you can see that it's really important to put the source, like right there, we put the source in the corner, and then just give like key numbers, and especially make it really colorful and bright, because that's going to catch people's attention. So maybe Ivana, we can show like the other examples we had prepared, so they can. So here we made recommendations. So you can share like movie recommendations, movies you have watched on a specific topic. So here we were covering the topic of migration. So that's a really good way if people don't have time to go looking on the internet, just to give them like short resumes of what happened in that movie or why it's relevant for that specific topic. Then we have we have teasing campaigns. This is really good when you want people to keep like make them stay tuned on what's coming next. So you're giving information constantly, but it's also good to make them look forward to something. So here, for example, we were announcing our researchers of teams. So the recruitment was about to start, and it's a really easy way to keep people engaged, because sometimes there is a lot of information. There is an overflow of information. So you have to find like really creative ways of keeping people engaged. Then we had quizzes, and this is my personal favorite, because that's, I think, one of the opportunities you get to actually exchange with the people, your community, the community you have created. So for example, we used to share a lot of papers our researchers will write, but we wanted to make sure people were actually reading these papers, and it's like a fun way to make sure they are learning. And if they hadn't seen it, imagine they missed the post on when we share that article or that paper on domestic migrant workers. So this is a good way as a reminder of, hey, we shared this last week, go check it out, because at the end, like, we put the picture of the paper, and also it's a good way to learn like just facts that probably you wouldn't have learned otherwise. So I really recommend you this one. It's my personal favorite. And last, I think we had a last example. Oh no, that was the last one. So as you can see, try and make it short, concise, compelling, a lot of color, and just a lot of pictures. I think that's what people mainly like right now on social media, because if they see a lot of text, people are lazy, so don't make it harder for them and try and give them like the key information you want to share with them. So for the last part, like, share, and follow. What for? Because the work does not end when you share the post. There is a lot of work you have to do afterwards, especially based on your strategy and where you want to take your account. So for example, if you want to have more reach, because it's fine, you can start having success, but if you want to reach more people and you want more people to learn about the topic you're advocating for, you have to use key hashtags. For example, when Ivana talked about the thematic campaigns, there are like really, they include some hashtags that you can use. So a lot of people are gonna be following that hashtag, and that's a good way to make your post known by others, and also to not get known by like your account, and people are gonna start following you or resharing your content. So that's a really good way to start reaching more people. Hashtags, like, before I thought it was really silly and I wouldn't like dare to put like a lot of hashtags, and then I understood the importance of hashtags. You have to be smart about how you use them, not just put a hashtag to put hashtag, but really try and find the key hashtags that are going to reach the public you want to reach. And then tagging people. That's really useful when you're sharing experiences. So your message can empower others, and it can help them by giving them a boost too. So don't forget to ask for their consent. That's, as Ivana said, it's really, really important. But it plays a major role in all advocacy campaigns by tagging relevant stakeholders. For example, for that thematic campaign we did for the SDGs, we tagged them and they reshared our post. So it's a really good way for people to know our think tank and just get in contact with more people that are working towards the same goal. So don't be scared to tag people, and especially if you're sharing content they have created. For example, we do a lot of podcasts or just simply sharing quotes. It's really important to tag that person, that way they can share it as well. And it's a good way to give them a space for them to share their ideas and talk. So it's really a really powerful tool. I think sometimes we don't realize to what extent it's really powerful. And then, as Ivana said, the thematic groups are really, really, really useful. I think we cannot recommend them enough. It's a good way to start conversation, to meet more people that are working on the same topics as you are. And it's going to allow you to start conversation, because in the end, you simply want to build a community. You want to reach to people. So it's really important. And yeah, so when you post something, you gotta think beyond just, oh yeah, I uploaded it, it's fine, I can move on with my life. No, you really have to try and see, okay, I posted this, how can I make it, my post reach the most people I can? So that's a question you always have to keep in mind. And then the analytics and indicators. So when you're creating a strategy or simply playing around and trying to create content, you have to come up with a method on how to evaluate the success of the strategy or the post you're making. So basically to see if it has failed or succeeded. I mean, there's not such a thing as failed, I would say. Basically, I mean, your post can be really, really good, really pretty, really creative, and has checked all the boxes Ivana mentioned previously. You checked all your facts and everything else, but maybe you didn't get as much likes or comments or shares. And don't be disappointed when this happen. Basically, you're gonna learn from your mistakes, and sometimes it's simply that you didn't tag the right people, you didn't use the right hashtags, you didn't share it at the right time, because that's also something really important. I think we forgot to mention. You have to try and see when, I mean, once you have in mind the audience, you have to see what's the best time to target this audience, because if your audience is asleep, they're gonna keep missing your posts, which is something that happened to us at the beginning, because we targeted students, and for example, when they had exams or the weekends, like our post wouldn't get any likes, and it was such a shame, because like a lot of work had been put into it. So like really try and see for example, you had a post that had a ton of likes and shares and comments, and a lot of people gave you feedback on it. So try and see what makes this post so special, what's the format, what hashtags did I use. So that's like one of the simplest like indicators you can have: the likes, the saves, the reshares, the comments, if you're getting new followers. That's a good way to start. But also, like, many social media include their own indicators. These are more, I would say, if you, once you're used to it and you get the hang of it, I think it's worth it to check them. Like Instagram, Twitter analytics, Facebook analytics, even LinkedIn offers you like data on your administration page. So it's, once you feel comfortable with what you're creating and you're satisfied with all the other boxes we already gave you, I think it will be nice to see these indicators just to have an idea of what you have to improve, because the idea is to keep improving. And yeah, this is a good way to do it. So building a community takes a lot of time, so don't feel pressured just to rush and like try and check everything. Like, really, when we started, we would get like 8 likes and a lot of people wouldn't like see our posts. And it's really satisfying when you see how much people you have liked and how much the people you bring together. For me, that's like the best part of it.
And just as we're now reaching the end, at least of our presentation, I mean, this whole thing can sound scary. This whole part of looking at like the deep part of how posting works and the technical parts, but this all has a meaning, and let's say it's going to be useful for you, because as Dani said, this is a whole process. So you cannot expect to become an expert from dawn to sunrise. And to be honest, no one expects you to become an expert that fast, not even to become an expert. A lot of people share content because they like to do it, or they like to produce content. So the idea here is, when you look at all of the things you have created, you can also use them to take your work to a whole new level. Either you're working on your own, or you're working with an association, company even, because really communication in social media, it's everywhere. For instance, at first I thought that communication was something that only journalists did. But when you see, pretty much everyone has a communications department, either supermarkets, pharmacies, NGOs, and so on. So you can communicate on pretty much every topic that you like. So for instance, if you want to take your work a step further and you want to, let's say, build partnerships or collaborate with other people from that sector, having all this information of the work you've done, it's super useful, because it pretty much allows you to sort of sell yourself, to say, hey, if you partner with us, we have this much reach, we have this much followers, and there's gonna be people behind that is gonna be backed up by the work you have done. And also, when you look back at what you've done, it also allows you to identify areas where you really, really succeeded. So for instance, that can help you to identify new formats. There are a lot of new platforms. I know, like as Dani said, we really like podcasts, but also new ways to, let's say, modernize those with like Twitch or live streams on Facebook and Instagram and so on. So you can make it like more alive. So it's not pre-recorded. So really don't be scared of explore these formats, and there's pretty much something new every day. So if you get tired of something, you can always adapt it. And what's really cool, and perhaps we didn't mention it enough, is that you can have one same content and exploit it in different ways based on the different platforms. For instance, you know that Instagram is a bit more interactive, so perhaps you can leave the quizzes there, and you can share like the more serious version of your work perhaps on LinkedIn, so you don't have to share the exact same thing on every platform. And again, that takes us back to Dani's presentation on don't forgetting who your public is, who you're speaking to, and what it is that you want to achieve with that. So all this process, let's say it's a big circle. When you create, you learn, you adapt, and then you repeat it as much as you want. And one thing that we have didn't mention enough is that when you're trying to identify your message, you're gonna be pushed by what's buzzing, like topics that are being spoken of and so on. don't be scared of going like parallel to that, to speak about things that people are not speaking. I don't know how it goes in Romania, but at least for us being in France, we know that perhaps in France, people don't speak enough about Latin America. So you can try to speak about other topics too. And that's the reason why people are going to listen to you, because it's out there, it's something different, and it's something that other people are not exploiting. So that's also really good. And of course, you can also be part of the mainstream, and that's fine. It's a choice. So just to let you know that you have like endless possibilities on the type of content you want to create. And I guess
and I think that replies. No, just to add to that, I think there was a question about what if your campaign or the topic is not well received by the audience, and you can if it is a sensitive topic, or as Ivana said, like just a topic people are not that interested about. I think you're always gonna get like people that don't agree with you or hateful comments. Sadly, there's a lot of that. Like there's a lot of good on the internet, but also like a lot of mean and disinformed people that can be mean simply. And I think it's really healthy to have interactions, conversations, share ideas with people, but sadly the people that are going to be leaving hateful comments on your work, I think you're not going to probably change their mind because they're not looking for a conversation, they're just being mean. But I think that shouldn't stop the work you're doing, especially if it's a cause you really care for. And like you're always gonna agree to disagree. You're always gonna find people that simply don't validate what you're doing. And I think you're also gonna find people that really appreciate your work. And I think you gotta focus on that. I mean, those type of people. So just to reply to that.
Yes, thank you. And well, I think that's it from our side. I mean, we're at the end of our slides. So thank you very much for listening to us. I'm sorry, I don't see the chat, so I don't know if there are any questions. But let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And as Anna explained at the beginning, this is all about helping and supporting each other. So if you have any questions, we know that there's shy people that don't like to speak on Zoom. So if you prefer to drop us a message, feel free to do so.
Yeah, we can share our contact information if you want to reach to us later. We're here. We're really friendly.
Yeah, we're nice.
Thank you for advices and for sharing your experience with us. So, as you said, you can put questions in the chat, and we have one from Teodora Negoye. How can I make someone actually notice a problem without them passing by it, or skipping or sweeping to the next story, or continuing to scroll down, etc.? Is the first question. If you can ask.
Yeah, I think I can start replying to that. I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
I think it's all a matter. I mean, you know, as well as a user, how you react when you're scrolling. So you know it happens. I know that there are certain topics I don't like, and I just keep scrolling them, or I just see what the format is. Because I know if it's, for instance, if it's gonna take me a lot of time to understand what the issue is with whatever that person is posting, I'm gonna skip it. And that's as someone who also produces content, just for you to know that like there are two sides to everything. So what we recommend is to make it short, to make it, let's say, attractive. Perhaps you've seen like a lot of people can be a bit extremist with something. So they would say like a very shocking picture and then move to a different topic. But just for you to get their attention, a lot of banks do that. Like they put a picture of a puppy and then they talk about loans, and they don't have anything to do. But like behind this whole thing, there's a lot of psychology too. So, you know, to like grab the attention. So for instance, in like content where you post multiple images, I'm thinking about Instagram, for example, the first one, that's the one that's going to be the most compelling. So you got to think about the way you organize things. Like, okay, the first one needs to grab the people's attention. So it has to be shiny. It has to be very to the point. So using keywords and very, I wouldn't say shocking images, because that's like pretty much propaganda and that's not okay. But like really images that speak to people. And at the end, if that person doesn't want to read it, that's their loss. I mean, you did our best. And what also works, and perhaps Dani can tell you more about that, is sharing the content in different ways. Like you post it on Instagram, but you also share it in a story. So, you know, like you have
Exactly.
not bombarding people with content, but like making sure you have like different types of accessibility, you know, like you have the raw content here, but perhaps a friendlier version here that they can quickly read while they're in the metro or doing the dishes or something like that.
Exactly. Just as Ivana said, like sometimes what we do with our papers, because like our team of researchers, they have put a lot of effort into it. And of course, the whole goal, our purpose is for people to read this work. And so what, like, you gotta try like a smooth way of reminding them like, hey, this post is here, this information is here, it's really important. Or just also what helps is like resharing. Like, for example, in our team, like everyone would reshare in their like own social media platforms these posts. So you gotta use your network as well, I would say. Like that's a really useful way to reach more people, and that way your message is not going to get lost, especially if you really want to get a message out there. That's my recommendation.
Thank you. We have the second question from Teodora. What can really have an impact on someone to the point where they literally stay and listen to what I or anyone else has to say about an issue?
I guess it would depend on the topic and what type of contribution you're making, you know. For instance, if there's like a whole debate on whether or not people should be drinking water, and you come up and say, you know what, it's not water, it's milk. It's so different. And people are gonna be like, wow, why is she saying that? So it's like the type of, let's say, if you're bringing a solution, I think people are gonna like to hear that. If you're making a comment, perhaps less. So that's what we try to explain when we say about the angle. Like, what's your contribution to it? So if you're trying to mix up different topics and say, okay, so perhaps I don't have the cure for cancer, but I know that there's this work being made, that there's these people doing this that perhaps can be a starting point or a good way to contribute to that. And again, like there are no useless contributions. Whatever you put out there is going to be important to someone else. I think there is a quote that says like one's trash is each other's gold or something like that. So it's really what you do with it. I'm not saying that everything you put out there is going to change the world. That would be great. But it's not the case. And I think it's like different little steps that if perhaps someone that is related, for instance, I know that it happens a lot with indigenous communities. Like they don't have a lot of visibility, but when one of them stumbles across that type of information, they feel seen, they feel heard. So it's like that kind of acknowledgement can also change someone else's life. And I think that's the pretty part about the community, like going through the comments and see what people thought, what are the feedbacks. That's also like the human part of social media, which can also get a bit lost because we try to be so perfect on what we put out there. But it's also very nice to see like how people react to what you're sharing. I don't know if Dani, you want to add something?
No, I think you covered it pretty much. I have nothing to add to that.
Okay, and we have a good feedback, amazing presentation from Laura Nagu. And the question, what resources would you recommend for us to learn more about creating impactful content, books, podcasts, etc.?
I would say I have learned a lot through not influencers, but just, I don't know what's the right appropriate word, but activists. I have like a really good one in mind right now. You probably know her. She's part of the Earthrise movement. She's called Alice 80, I think. I'm gonna write it on the chat. 80. So I've learned a lot from her because she carries like a lot of conversations with journalists and I really like the way she approaches information. So I have learned a lot from her, the videos she makes, the podcasts she has. So I really, really recommend her. And as for the tools, I learned a lot through Canva. It might sound really common and like basic, but I really learned a lot through that platform. I think it's really amazing that you have a free version, and the free version allows you to do a lot, like really, really a lot, and it's really user friendly. So I think I cannot recommend it enough. It's really good. And yeah, go check out Alice. She has a really, really big platform, and she's like a really genuine person. And I think I've learned a lot from her as well as on how to communicate.
Maybe I can add that in regards to communication, you can have both. You can have a very theoretical aspect to it, and you can find lots and lots of books about like communications theory, and well, perhaps Andrea will tell you more about that because she's like studying that. So there's a science behind it. Like there's a whole part of how does this work, why does it work like that, and things like that. And as we mentioned, communication is the basis of humanity. It's like interactions between people. So there's a whole like psychological side to it as well. And you can definitely get very deep into that from a theoretical perspective. But also, and perhaps that's how we learned it, is by doing it. So you do a lot of crash tests. You try to see how it fits with your mood. I mean, for instance, colors are very, very personal. So sometimes you will choose colors that perhaps are not representative of the topic, but that you like. That's also okay. So I think, yeah, as Dani said, like following people and seeing what's out there, it's a really good idea. And again, you're taking inspiration. That's important to have in mind. Like you're not copying, because again, you can get sued for that. So don't. So it's really like getting inspired and seeing what things you like. Because when you're getting started, it's like buying clothes. Those things change. There are trends, there are fashions, and you gotta see what is it that you like. And perhaps a key element in this whole thing is what Dani presented on the visual identity. That's something that's pretty much gonna be like I don't know how you say it in English, but the thing that steers the boat. It's something that is not meant to change as much. It's gonna keep like the red, the guiding tool across whatever you produce, so people can recognize your work being shared, whatever is shared or even reshared. So those are things that are good if they're stable, and then you can add as much color and change it as you want, and it's still gonna be your work. And then when you look back, you can actually see your little logo on the corner, and you'll see, oh, that's your work, and you can see how it has changed throughout the whole time. So I think that's pretty cool. It's an advice. You can of course change it, but I'd say that's it from my side.
Thank you. If someone else has a question, you can put it in chat. If not, thanks again for guests to their hard work and for all the advice that's shared with us. We hope they caught your advice well and that you'll be able to apply it in real life to fulfill your dreams. We thank the participants to their attention and involvement for the questions. Thanks for the team for their help in making this event happen. How you can reward our work if you benefit with this event, we are waiting for you on Facebook, Instagram, Her Time Romania, to keep in touch, to be the first to find out about new projects and to talk further to friends. Okay, you can donate on Patreon. We invite you to join the Facebook group to benefit from community of young people as the form today for the long term, for personal and professional development. Everyone is welcome there. And we will send feedback forms soon. And to reward our work, team volunteering being free session, please help us with suggestions, impressions, and sessions. A beautiful evening ahead, and I hope to see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. It was a great experience.